Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and in this episode, we sit down with the one and only Jeff McBride. Now, this was such an incredible episode because Jeff really changed a lot in the world of magic. He changed a lot for the world of card manipulation. He changed a lot in terms of bringing interesting styles to the performance of magic. And with the Magic and Mystery School, he has educated so many magicians and working alongside people like Eugene Berger and Lawrence Haas and so on and so on. He's just done incredible things and helped create so many incredible magicians. And this was a wonderful episode. Jeff is packed with magic knowledge and he was incredibly generous sharing it with all of you. I hope you enjoy this, multi-ranging but incredibly interesting and incredibly fun conversation with the one and only Jeff McBride. Jeff, how are you?
It's great. It's wonderful here. It is wonderful weather in Las Vegas, and the shows are back opening. People are wearing masks, but I guess I was an early adapter. I've been wearing masks since the very beginning. The very beginning, yes.
I love it. First of all, you are not only the original mask wearer, but a lot of awesome things going on. You've helped pioneer, but also the world of virtual has been so twisty and turny, and we are back to live shows. But I know you also, went through the fun journey with virtual, both with yourself and some awesome stuff going on with the Mystery School. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that as well.
Well, the Mystery School has been online streaming every week for 11 years. We've been doing this a really long time. And when the pandemic first hit, we helped a lot of people set up their Zoom shows, get the technology down, get the interface down. We had classes on that. But we've been doing this a really, really long time. Like I said, we do every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, we have an online show called Mystery School Monday. And the first Monday of every month is free to the world. And during the pandemic, the heavy part of the pandemic before the vaccine, we opened up all of our classes every week to the world because people were confused. They needed a landing spot. And we had people like that are faculty of our school, like Dr. Ricardo Rosencrantz, who helped us with a lot of the medical advice and would interpret what was going on in the news and help a lot of the students make good choices about doing COVID compliant shows, doing no touch or low touch shows. And we're back to that now, aren't we?
Yeah. So not only were you the first to masks, but you were the first to virtual way before everybody else was too. I want to go over the very beginning of your story very quickly, only because I know you're short for time, but I'd love to know, how did you actually get started in magic? How did you get into magic in the first place?
I got into magic by reading books. I wanted to be a drummer. I wanted to be a rock and roll drummer. And in school, there was all the music books right next to the magic books in the library. And I was really, there was no magicians where I grew up in upstate New York. So I was really a person that learned from books. And there was very little magic on television. So I had to learn my magic, all from books or little, just memorizing it from what I would see on TV when there was a rare magician. We only had 3 networks back then. So we were very, very limited into what was there for us. Now with the internet, students of magic have great opportunities.
When I watch your magic old clips and new clips, what you mentioned of being in the magic section right beside the music section seems to really ring a bell. You look like a rock star on that stage, both in the fun that you're having and, the fun that the audience is a part of. And obviously there's a lot other influences in there, things like mime and theater. But talk to us a little bit about some of the influences that put together, I think the Jeff McBride that I think we know, when we think of.
In the early days, it was rock and roll. There was, there was more rockers to watch than magicians to watch. And there was more of that, on television and the magazines than anything else. So my early influences were David Bowie and Alice Cooper. I grew up watching Alice Cooper, and that was, in high school, I did not know that one day I would be Alice Cooper's opening act.
Wow.
And get to open for him. Yeah. And that was kind of cool. But, I'm a rock and roll child and grew up on that. And then other influences, like I said, David Bowie and Marcel Marceau, he could fill a stage with absolutely nothing. So that I brought that mime influence in. And then martial arts was a big inspiration. I started combining all of these disciplines. And by the time I was 16, I had the extraordinary opportunity to travel all the way to Asia to study magic, martial arts, and Japanese kabuki theater. And when I returned to the USA, I took all of these theatrical disciplines and I combined them to create my own unique form of magic theater, which pulled together all of these different influences. My show is much more about the theatrical experience than just fooling or tricking the audience. You know, I did manipulation, I did quick changes, I evolved the mask work, and I was opening for rock bands in rock venues. I mean, places I was opening for Cheap Trick at Radio City Music Hall. That's 6,000 seats, and I'm up there doing manipulation with playing cards and, you know, my linking rings and my kabuki stuff. And there's no IMAG screens, there's no giant screens. I just had to use the movement to fill the space. So I learned from my teachers, my movement teachers and my theater teachers, how to create a big theatrical show with a minimal amount of props.
You know, it's incredible the way you describe it because, you know, in looking back now, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, your style has had an effect on magic. There's a lot of people that, you know, you start to see, you know, Jeff McBride rubbing off on their style and the way they do things. But back then, you know, when you did it, there was nothing anything like what you were putting out there. And even now, the stuff, there's nothing anything like it. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like, bringing something so unique to the world of magic? I think magic sees a lot of mild variations and not a lot of, you know, real, you know, something different coming into the space. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
I spent a lot of time in New York City studying theater and then meeting people like Tobias Beckwith, who is the theater director and manager of the Edison Theater. He introduced me to Bob Fitch, who was a veteran of, you know, 30 Broadway shows and an incredible theater coach. And it was getting the theatrical training that gave me permission to go into these very powerful stories that I would tell solo in mime on stage without words, just to music. So pieces like my Mask and Mirror piece and my Kabuki piece or the Rainmaker piece, all of these pieces have a lot of emotion, theater, and character development in all of them. You see the character grow and go through changes. These days, you know, magic is very influenced by social media, and it's all about being organic and natural. When I was putting these things together, my magic was supernatural and very unusual and high performance, and it wasn't natural magic in every way. It wasn't like street magic. It was very theatrical and stylized. And I still like both kinds of magic. I mean, I love to watch very, very pure sleight of hand in social situations, but I also like watching very powerful theatrical magic. I see very little of it these days. However, Teller still surprises me with some of his newer creations with Penn. And I get to see some of my students, some of my competitor students that I'm working with are now starting to venture into that world of highly theatrical and stylized magic. It's not everyone's bag, but it helped me stand out. It helped me stand out in the crowd and break out of the mold.
That's such good advice, and I love the analysis of what's going on, where there's so much of that, you know, natural, trying to look like and feel like and be like the real world, and that was, you know, a real example of the opposite. And I think that there are, even to this day, such beautiful examples of both. But, you know, I love what you said. I think the theatrical magic is even now still underrepresented in magic.
It's much harder to produce than kind of the social media magic trick of the week. When I was growing up and when Lance was growing up in our formative years, and the same holds true for maybe people like Brett Daniels and Kevin James, we were reading books about masters of stage magic. And, you know, we were in, you know, our formative years, you know, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And inside of our mind, we were on stage. So we created these theatrical experiences. The magicians that are growing up now, they grow up on social media where everything is like this big and everything has to like fit this frame. Magic is like, it's really, really different. The gap between when I started in magic and what's happening now in social media magic. There's this like hyper realism, and when I was designing my act, it was very theatrical. But at the same time, I change and adapt. Like I have a Zoom show. I did my Magic Quest show, which was sold out, which was a highly theatrical, stylized Zoom show shot in multiple locations around the Mystery School. And it was kind of an autobiographical journey. And now at the end of this month, on October 30th, I have one day only. I'm doing a show called Magic, Masks, and Monsters. And it's a twisted mysteries and bizarre storytelling. See, my teacher for the past 30 years was Eugene Berger, who was a master of bizarre magic and storytelling. So I keep that tradition alive, and I'm going to be doing, it's kind of a Halloween party, but it's online. The online experience is a lot of fun for me. I've been performing live on big stages all the time, but I can't do that now so much. You know, I did Atlanta Harvest of Magic last week, which was an awesome live convention. However, I think Zoom and online performance is here to stay, both in the corporate market and in the public market. So I've been shaping my performance to fit that screen.
You know, I would agree with everything you're saying about Zoom shows. I love hearing about, you know, the innovation that you're doing. And I think what you said there is really, really fitting about, you know, maybe when you started in magic, your influences and the idea of magic was one thing, but magic has been changing and you changing with the times. And that's incredible, you know, incredible to see it happen. And obviously see it have a ripple effect through your students. I want to talk about a couple other interesting things. You know, the first thing is I want to talk about, you know, manipulation. This is something that, again, was an area that exploded once. I mean, from my understanding, I wasn't around then. From my research, it was once you really brought it and exploded it to the scene. And a lot of the manipulation I see still has a flavor and a taste of Jeff McBride. So I'd love to hear, you know, from your perspective, what was bringing manipulation at that scale, you know, of that quality, like to the world of magic?
I had the opportunity to study with masters, and I studied with Lou Lancaster and Bobby Baxter and Frank Garcia and Jeff Sheridan, and I learned a lot of manipulation, some of it in books, but a lot of it wasn't in books. And it was just at the time when Louis Falanga and his L&L people were putting together those videos. They were, you know, VHS at the time. But that revolutionized the way that people could learn this, because they could actually see it happen in real time instead of just like how I learned it from reading it or getting it from a coach. So I pulled all this information together, gave everybody credit. And the first project that I did was the art of card manipulation, where I went into all these old Lou Goldston books and dug out, like, you know, these card flowers and things that you see all over cardistry now. It was called flourishing then. And I put all of these flourishes, and the reason they got so popular is because Micah Marr let me use his super practice, which was putting all of the sleights in slow motion to music. So there wasn't a language barrier. So they caught on in South Korea and Asia, and they caught on because all of a sudden here was magic that you didn't need to speak to do. Before that, most all of the stuff on video was card tricks. It wasn't card manipulation. So I was the first person to put that much. There was a couple of videos that Lou Lancaster and other people had put out, but not the massive amount of information that I put with the credits and the books. See, I gave the people all the resources, so the people that were serious could study that. And people like, you know, An Halim, you know, saw that stuff, and Nestor Hato in you know, in France, and all these people that innovated all of the other stuff. And I had all of the jumbo coin work and the thimble manipulation and the ball manipulation and the stage magic. And it came out at a time where people were really hungry for this, because there was a whole new generation learning on video. And I encouraged the non-visual, you know, the non-visual learners, that's a cop-out for saying that they don't read books, to read the books, because the stuff is hidden in the books. So we promoted the books through the form of video, because there is this iceberg of magic. You see the tip called video, but there's all of these hidden secrets and techniques that lie below the surface. So there's so much wealth of information in the books for people, and we wanted to bring that to the future generations. I mean, I've been teaching magic for over 30 years. That's a long time, and I learned so much from my students about how to teach and what to teach. And I still research every day, and I'm still consulting for David Copperfield, and I consult for Penn and Teller, and I consult for Piff and Matt Franco, and all of the pros that are here, and many in Europe and South America as well. And I spend most of my day teaching.
I was going to say what you said about, educating these flourishes, not only the credits, but also teaching it without a language barrier. It's interesting. I always thought of manipulation acts as being acts that don't have a language barrier, but I never really put two and two together to say that the actual education of that exploded because of that as well. So that is a really cool, education moment in magic right now that is very exciting. To hear for me. And you mentioned the, teaching then, and you mentioned teaching now, you mentioned teaching for 30 years. And I think that's a good transition for us to talk about teaching magic. Magic has this incredible history of having teachers and having students. And, you as somebody who has taught magic for so long has potentially been able to help magicians get there faster, get there incredibly quickly. So my question is, what are the big pieces, the big fundamentals, the big, roadblocks that you consistently run into that you said, hey, if I was to tell a magician, these are the big 3 things, these are the big 5 things that you need to know, what would those things be?
One of the things that a good magic coach or mentor does is they can save the student years of fruitless endeavor working on the wrong stuff or studying the wrong material, because what I do is each student is different. It's not like I can say, here are your 3 things for everybody. Each student is different. Some students have an incredible eloquence and a natural ability with words. Some are very good with their hands, but they haven't refined their speaking skills, and that's their growing edge. So each student I have to help in a certain way. I will say this, what will make you a better magician is to stop watching television, turn off all notifications on your phone, because when we practice, when we get into the practice of magic, we enter a flow state. What Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the great author that put out 2 wonderful books that every magician would benefit by reading, is the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi and the book Creativity. And also one of his students recently wrote a book, his name is Cutler, called The Art of Impossible. And it's about practice and flow states and reaching excellence. When you turn off your notifications on your phone, anything that buzzes, beeps, anything that breaks your concentration, because if you go check your phone, what happens is it's going to take you 20 minutes to get back into the flow state, back into your practice. Another thing is, do not turn on your computer in the morning or check your phone before you've done a practice session. And that means run through some close-up magic, run through some parlor magic, do some reading, but get your practice in the morning before you get sucked into the telephone and the email and the social media. Limiting your social media is another thing. I have not owned a television in my home since 1979, when I moved to New York City to work at Flosso's Magic Shop, go to the American Mime Theater to take dance and martial arts classes. I got out of the television habit. I've never had a television since. And you have to be careful on the computer because, with YouTube and Netflix, that can become your addiction as well. More time in front of the mirror, more time at the books, more time at the close-up table. That's what's going to make you a better magician. Posting stuff on social media is going to make you popular. You're going to get a lot of hits. But as Lance Burton says, getting 1 million hits on Facebook doesn't make you a good magician. It makes you popular, but it doesn't make you a good magician.
Jeff, that's amazing advice. Something as so simple as, turning off the notifications, getting offline. But the answer we've known for a long time in magic is in going deep. It's in spending more time on it, spending more time thinking, focusing, learning, reading, doing. That is where the answer lies. It's not in, the distraction. So I think that's a real key for everybody, that the answer is deep inside of the trick, inside of the work. I think of, you mentioned the incredible Eugene Berger, who talks about vision quest, talks about closing your eyes and just picturing yourself on that stage doing the thing. And, that really, really resonates with what you're talking about. You can't do that if you're hearing a ding or a buzz or a beep, and you're thinking about what is going on. You need to allow yourself to go get lost in the world of magic. And that's where it all happens, whether it's lost in a book or in creativity. That's where it happens.
Eugene Berger wrote a recent book, came out a few years ago, called Teaching Magic. And he says, practice must be conscious. It's not just fiddling with the cards. That's just fiddling with cards and doing your double lift is not practice. That's just fiddling. Practice has to be conscious, it has to be deliberate, and it has to be regular. And better 10 minutes a day than an hour on the weekend. Do shorter practice sessions more frequently, and your hands, and you get the body-mind connection. If you want to read more about this, Thomas Coyle has an amazing book called The Talent Code, which talks about how we learn and how these myelin sheaths wrap around our synapses every time we sit down to practice. And when we drill and we memorize and we work on our words and our magic working together, we become more proficient of weaving these things together. Thomas Coyle, Coyle, reading that book, and the book that came out after that, which is called The Little Book of Talent by Thomas Coyle, Coyle, will make you a better magician. These will make you a better magician.
Wow. And these books are all about focus. They're all about actually, getting into, like you mentioned, flow state, working on your magic. The secret does not lie in another trick, the secret lies in digging deeper.
Right. And that's the great fallacy, is that the next trick that you get, that email, is going to make you a gangbuster magician. And the new trick that you get takes your attention, reading the ad, considering it, ordering it, then you get it, and then you play with it. This is all distraction from drilling deep.
Every step of that is distraction.
Every step of the way is distraction. And if you want to get good at something, get good at one thing, like the way Armando Lucero got good at cards and coins. Wow. Like the way that Tabari got good at rope. Like no one can even hold a piece of rope like Tabari,
Wow.
And one of the things that I just drilled deep on years ago, when I was backstage for 20 minutes in between acts, when I was touring with the Radio City Music Hall show, which is one of the largest touring shows in the world, I had 20 minutes between numbers, and every night, 20 minutes, both hands, coin rolls, until I got the world record in Guinness Book of Records for rolling coins. I could have done a lot of other things. I could have answered a lot of emails and done a lot of posts or whatever what was happening back then. But instead, I decided to do one thing better than anyone else. And we've seen these people, these prodigies that take one thing and they can do it better than anyone else. If you look at Shin Lim, look at the dedication he's had to his magic, and you can see totally, because he has instilled in him the practice discipline of a concert pianist. That's where maybe that comes from. But it's not going to be the next great trick. And if one thing that's going to make you a better magician is to find yourself a magic coach. And now that we are all on Zoom, that coach can be anywhere in the world, and you can be anywhere in the world. And even at our magic school, we offer scholarships and stipends. So finances aren't even an issue anymore. If people want to study online with us, all they need to do is to go to magicalwisdom.com and look at our scholarships and look at our stipends. In the last couple of years, we've given out $100,000, over $100,000 to students that wanted to study online or in person with us.
Wow. Jeff, both in your life and in your writing, you've spoken about some of the different phases of magic, and you have, quite gracefully, performed in some of these and acted, and been in these different phases of a magician's life. Can you talk a little bit about those different phases of a magician's life?
Well, I've been teaching magic for 30 years and studying mythology, the archetypes, and different ways that people access information. And one of these things that we figured out was a typology, that there are 4 major styles of magic depending on where people are at in their life. Most people start as a trickster, and then if they stay with it, they evolve into what we call sorcerer. And then as they mature, they may enter this part of their life in midlife called the oracle. And then finally, towards the end of their life, the sage. But most of us get into magic when we're young because of the wonders of magic. We get our mind blown and we want to know the secrets. And skill building, and we get into that phase. Other people stick with it and learn their skill building and communication skills, and then they learn stage and theater and marketing and all of the other skills that go into having a career in magic. Some people deepen into the magic and find the psychology and philosophy of magic very interesting. We call that stage the oracle. And then finally, the sage. And the sage, most people in the magic industry are not performers, they're collectors, they're hobbyists, they're magic fans, they're magic lovers. Just the way you go to a baseball game, there's a lot of people that love baseball. Very few of them are playing every weekend, on a team. So it's the same thing in magic, that there's many, as Eugene says, there's many rooms in the house of magic. But there's not just these 4 archetypes. There's many blends of the different skill sets. Comedy and close-up magic, stagecraft and dramatic magic. There's, mentalism, psychological magic, which goes into maybe readings and psychic phenomena and that whole world. However, you can still do comedy mentalism. You could do comedy stage illusions. You can be a trickster sage, like Juan Tamariz is a trickster sage. So Tim Conover, the great mentalist, he was like a sorcerer, trickster, oracle. So you can combine all of these different skill sets. But I teach a course on this at the Magic School once a year called Trickster, Sorcerer, Oracle, Sage, the 4 Faces of Magic. And it really goes through this, because to try to cover a lifetime of work in 4 minutes is impossible. But I did want to honor you by kind of touching on that question. If people are interested, they can talk to me. I answer my emails. It's jeff@mcbridemagic.com, jeff@mcbridemagic.com. And it might take me a week to get back to your email, but I'll answer every single one. I mean, what I do is I pass on the mysteries of magic to students that are serious about what they do. Derek Delgadio says something so interesting in a short clip that I saw of him. He goes, many people think magicians keep secrets from people, but he goes on to say that's not the case. Magicians keep secrets for people. And that was like, wow, I think that's what I've been doing my whole life. I have one of the largest libraries in the world and magic collections, and it's all here. I'm preserving this stuff so I can teach students like you, like your friends, like people that within earshot of this. And all they have to do is take a step towards our mystery school and knock, and the door will be opened.
Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the episode, and I hope, of course, that you learned something. As always, if this was cool, interesting, or fun to you, if you think one of your friends or your magic club or a magic Facebook group that you're in would get a kick out of this, it would mean the world if you shared it. You can share the links from discourseinmagic.com. That's the best way to tell people about it. Other than that, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your ears. I think about your ears every week. That's true. Okay. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next Thursday. Peace.